me? All right. Excellent. So, yeah, I'm Claire. I'm the Development Manager at the Council for British Archaeology. Hopefully you all know what that is, but if not, we're a UK-wide educational charity, and our remit covers a whole range of different things. We coordinate the Young Archaeologists Club. We've now got around 80 branches across the UK. We run the Festival of Archaeology, which we'll come on to a little bit later. We have listed buildings caseworkers for England and Wales. We undertake a whole variety of projects and activities based around getting more people involved and engaged with archaeology. So I feel like my title is maybe not quite what I'm going to talk about now. It's kind of evolved, particularly thinking about intrigue and opportunity as I've gone along. So bear with me if it doesn't quite seem to fit. But there is a thread going through here. So we've seen today some amazing examples of all of the work that's happening with CITIZAN, with SCAPE, with CHERISH around the whole of the UK and Ireland, creating some amazing projects, looking at some amazing sites and working with some absolutely brilliant volunteers, all based around the coast. So I'm going to take you away from the coast now. Although I have, so now I've started, realised that I've obviously been working with Chris Colonco for too long, because I have two pictures of coastal archaeology and both of them involve concrete. So this one is Godwin Battery, First World War site at Spurn in Yorkshire. So the reach of climate change goes way beyond just the coastlines. It affects the whole of the country, and the impacts last far beyond what we immediately see as a result of the storms and the dry spells that we're aware of. Our peatlands are drying out, soil conditions are changing, and our habitats are evolving. So the CBA's motto is Archaeology for All, and I'd like to explore a bit how we might be able to deliver more volunteer opportunities across the UK to help record the impact of climate change in a range of environments. Can we use a similar model to CITIZAN to deliver this on a broader scale? How might this work? Are there other, more creative and less fieldwork focused opportunities that might appeal to wider audiences? I certainly don't have the answers. Bits of this are already being done, and I'm not a specialist in climate change archaeology at all. So this is really kind of the beginnings of what I hope will be a much broader and bigger conversation about how we might look to join up the dots in some of these areas and do more work around the UK, following on from the great stuff we've heard about today. So we've got researchers all around the UK from a range of heritage organisations and universities who are already undertaking significant work looking at the impact of climate change on the UK's archaeology. There's a large body of research already developed, and work is underway to look at techniques and methodologies to protect and preserve sites, while further work looks at how activity to limit the effect of climate change might impact on archaeology itself. Scarborough Brae is being used to pilot new technology to monitor the threat to World Heritage Sites, while research at Carr here is in North Yorkshire is providing evidence of how communities in the past dealt with climate change on a site which is itself a victim of climate change, with increased acidity in the peat deteriorating the buried environment. But how do we see the impact of climate change on archaeology away from our coastlines? Over the last few weeks, we've clearly seen this with storms Kira and Dennis and the resulting floods. This can have a significant impact on historic buildings, causing damage to their structure and stability, but flooding also affects public spaces, often with important heritage stories of their own, like high streets, parks or sports grounds. This is Appleby in Cumbria. It's a market town with 12th century buildings, and obviously the most famous thing is the Appleby Horse Fair, which began in 1176. Appleby is now a heritage action zone, and one of the aims that has is to repair some of the damage caused by significant flooding in 2015 and 16. These challenges are only going to become increasingly difficult because more recently, with the two storms of the last few weeks, Appleby has flooded again, and yet more damage has occurred to its buildings. Got another line kiln, this time in the Peak District. We heard about this just the other day. This is a 19th century Grade 2 listed limestone in the Peak District National Park. And this collapse happened just before Christmas. And it's believed that this was the result of prolonged rainfall on already saturated ground. I also saw this morning a tweet from Historic England highlighting the work of National Trust volunteers who have been working on a group of bell barrows in Dorset, and that's following on from heathland restoration. This is Lion Park, National Trust property, and in 2019 this was affected by both moorland fires in April and then flooding in July. It's a Grade 2 star listed 16th century house, and it's probably most famously known as Mr. Darcy's house from Pride and Prejudice. The fire spread that occurred on the moorland in the parkland of the site spread really rapidly due to a prolonged period of hot weather and steady winds which fueled the fire, and affected an area of around 2 kilometres. While the flooding caused significant damage to the gardens and parklands, and staff and volunteers have been working on repairing this damage for over 6 months now. The National Trust have been working to raise awareness of the impacts of climate change and implementing changes to the site to increase resilience, such as the creation of diverse woodland areas and participating in the Trust's Riverland scheme to re-wet an area of moorland, increasing carbon capture, slowing down water flow and reducing the risk of fires. They also share information about the work they're doing on climate change within the property and the visitor experience. But why use archaeology to encourage people to engage with climate change? Sarah Perry suggests that archaeological and heritage sites have the power to enchant, and in doing so they stand as seedbeds for human generosity, ethical mindfulness and care for the world at large. There's enormous opportunity within archaeology to positively impact on people's well-being and sense of empowerment through participation. Archaeology has the potential to make us look at things differently, to consider how we view the world, and to question how we want to be in the world today. So what evidence do we have that individuals want to participate in these activities and in these forms of archaeological engagement? Well, in 2018, Debbie Frierson undertook a survey for the CBA, which aimed to update a 2010 study assessing the current state of community archaeology in the UK. You can download the full survey if you want to have a look for both 2018 and 2010 via our website. For the purposes of Debbie's research, community archaeology was broadly defined as groups and individuals who have carried out research into the physical remains of the past. And the survey covered a large range of areas, including learning and skills, the reasons why individuals want to take part in archaeology, and looked at the activities they were currently undertaking and the demand for training. Over 850 individuals and groups participated in the survey, and there was a diverse mix of reasons shared for taking part, including careers development, developing a new hobby, learning and sharing skills, improving mental health and well-being, and being part of a community group. One of the questions the survey asked was what activities the respondents usually participated in. The highest responses were to more passive activities, visiting sites and museums and attending talks and lectures. But there was also a consistent response across the wide range of fieldwork and post-excavation activities listed, with excavation and field walking the most popular within this group. A further question went on to ask why people didn't participate in activities, and the principal obstacles were a lack of knowledge and not knowing who to contact to enable them to get involved. A significant number of responses also recorded that they simply hadn't thought about doing some of these activities before. So there's a potential there for us to be able to kind of create new pathways for people to find out and discover these opportunities so that they can actually start to learn the skills, to get involved and to do these things that perhaps they hadn't thought of before. The CBA has a broad network of contacts across regional groups, county societies and local groups, and the Community Archaeology Survey suggests a significant interest in continued participation in archaeology, but also in learning new skills, gaining new experiences, and moving beyond the traditional idea of excavation and fieldwork as the focus of engagement. Can we also use this appetite to engage and empower individuals and groups to engage with wider issues? Can we do more to link and promote existing opportunities? So this image here is from Oswestry Hillfort, 2006. Hundreds of people gathered at the site to protest against a proposed housing development in the sort of areas surrounding the site. Their campaign was successful. They didn't build the houses, and their campaigning continues, but most recently the council has said they won't build on the site for the foreseeable future. So it's a great example of how groups and individuals can come together and create a real positive impact on the environment. The CBA has also undertaken 2 major volunteer-led projects to record archaeology across the UK. The Defence of Britain project ran from 1995 to 2001, and over 600 volunteers made over 17,000 field visits to the remains of 20th century militarised landscapes. Participants carried out recording and condition surveys on the 14,000 sites that made up the project's anti-invasion database. The Homefront Legacy project ran throughout the First World War centenary, and volunteers recorded 5,660 spaces and places associated with the home front. This project also encouraged volunteers to visit sites that had already been recorded, to carry out condition surveys and record additional information. Key elements of this project were skills training for volunteers and making sure there were activities and opportunities for people of any age to participate. We also adapted and amended the project to fit the needs of participants. For example, we created a desktop research and recording handbook for veterans who were unable to visit sites in person but wanted to be involved in the project from their own homes. So this is my second concrete picture. A pillbox on Bridlington Beach, and that's actually the first one of the CITIZAN project, and the North team took all the CBA staff out on an away day and taught us about the project and what they were doing. It's an absolutely brilliant day out, despite the rather chilly weather, as you can see. And the map here, this shows all of the sites that were recorded during the Homefront Legacy project. We're just in the process at the moment of putting the archive for Homefront Legacy on the ADS website. But the Defence of Britain project is all fully accessible on ADS already. So if you want to find out any more about any of these sites, many of which relate to coastal archaeology, there's a huge number of wrecks on there. So it may well be that it's useful for some of your research and the work that you're doing. And of course, today we've heard all about the success of CITIZAN, CHERISH and SCAPE, and the fantastic and committed volunteers that are participating in this work. This is Lara and CITIZAN volunteers, and they're recording, I think it's a prehistoric hut circle in Tolls Porth in Scilly, is that right? I'll let them debate it. It's a nice picture of some volunteers doing some work. And there's also the Adopt a Monument scheme coordinated by Archaeology Scotland, and they support communities to help care for monuments that have significance to them. I've also already mentioned how the National Trust is getting involved to share information about climate change with visitors across its site, and working with volunteers to defend against the impact of climate change. So how can we create more opportunities using archaeology to help people think about the world around them? I've just got a couple of examples here that I'd like to share. I'm not suggesting these ideas are especially new, but what I'd like to see is a way we can bring these types of projects together so we can inspire and support each other to do more of them. Many of you may have taken part in a graveyard survey, which is a really rewarding way to find out about the inhabitants of a community, but in many cases it's also a brilliant way to record climate change. The erosion of grave markers, their inscriptions, can be an indicator of climate change, as can the array of lichen that grow on them. It can take hundreds of years for some lichen colonies to establish, and their presence can be a really good indicator of air quality. The combined space of the roughly 10,000 graveyards across the UK is around the size of a small national park, and they provide rich habitats for wildlife and plants. Are the ways that we can widen the scope of our graveyard surveys so the norm goes beyond recording the monuments, but also encourages communities to regularly revisit these spaces to carry out condition surveys, record and monitor the lichen, and record and monitor the habitats and wildlife as well. And what about the archaeological record we're leaving for the future? the 20th century has brought significant changes to our lifestyles, with which has come changing attitudes to spending, convenience, and a big increase in our use of disposable goods, especially plastic. John Schofield from the University of York has been working alongside a range of environmental specialists to study plastics in the Galapagos, where plastic pollution is having a dramatic impact on the marine environment. Working with the local community, the project to study the objects that are present in the ocean and washing up on the island's beaches. Using object narratives or biographies of selected finds, it's possible not only to understand the objects, but also invites people to consider the human impact of those objects, and through this, the impact their own actions have on the environment. Closer to home, many of you will be familiar with the story of the container ship Tokyo Express. During a storm in 1997, 62 containers were lost overboard, which contained 4.8 million pieces of Lego. Since then, Lego has been washing up on beaches around the southwest coast, and 23 years later, pieces are still regularly being found. And the dragon is apparently, that's the optimum find if you're out looking. Archaeology is a great way to get people thinking about material culture and the way we use and dispose of objects. Can we do more to engage people with the modern finds from excavations? Can we work better with environmental groups to do litter picks and beach cleans, and then study the materials that we collect, using it as a way to discuss our actions and stimulate behavioural change in a really positive way? And what about more creative ways to engage with archaeology, such as art, music, storytelling and theatre? Can we use the enchantment of archaeology as the inspiration for people to express their engagement with archaeology in new ways? Do we give enough weight to the creative and emotional responses we experience through participating in archaeology? The Wolds Heritage Group felt that the nature of archaeological records didn't reflect their personal and emotional responses to the archaeology of the excavations they were participating in at Hanging Grimstone on the Yorkshire Wolds. In response, they formed a craft group and began to create art that brought together the archaeology, the surrounding landscape, the social interactions, and the stories that unfolded about the past inhabitants of the site. This here is a story box, so this is the front here, and then it unfolds, and inside each layer has different pieces of art and stories and experiences, and brings together the personal experiences as well as the artefacts which you find when you finally uncover the last flap at the top there. And there are other ways to incorporate art into our work as well, such as theatre, music and crafting. This thought cloud is the work of Sarah Corbett, who runs Craftivist Collective. She worked with Heritage Open Days last year to enable people to try out the art of quiet protest in response to the festival's People Power theme, which was chosen to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the Peterloo Massacre. Can we do more of this as archaeologists? And can we and should we give more weight to the responses this work provokes in the outputs of our work? At the CBA, we're hoping to look at the potential of some of these ideas as part of this year's Festival of Archaeology. Grant, this may be your opportunity for the CITIZAN interpretive dance show. The festival takes place from the 11th to the 26th of July, and this year our theme is climate and environment. Alongside delivering some events ourselves, we are also sharing our ideas with event organisers and encouraging them to see if there are ways to incorporate the theme via activities and discussions within their own events. And we'll also be creating some young people's resources based around the theme. And I'd really like to invite all of you to participate in the festival in some way, whether it's through putting on an event yourselves or through coming along to something that's happening near you. On the festival website, you can sign up and register and add your event, or you can go and look at our interactive map and find out what's happening near you. But can we take this further? Are there possibilities to create a central platform that brings together existing and new citizen science projects? Do we need to broaden our minds to what we record? Can activities that provoke emotive, enchanted experiences have the same value as the contexts and plans we typically record? By creating a space to share our activity and experiences and emotions, we have a springboard to spark more co-creation, to develop projects and events and activities that not only inspire and engage communities with their local heritage, but also more regularly and consistently facilitate discussion about topical and challenging subjects in society today. Thank you very much.